The stage is set for the second of the two GT4 European Series races here at Zandvoort. It's been a damp track, a flurry of rain during the preceding race. You can see just off the pit wall side, the track is still a little bit greasy, but it's the problem when you get rain at one end of the circuit that could catch out some of these drivers. There is wind, as you can see, blowing down the start-finish straight from Tarzan towards the final corner, but the wind continues to blow in off the North Sea, bringing with it mixed weather. There is blue sky, but as you can see, also dry, dark clouds hanging above us. Look above the pit lane, the flags are beating with vigour. Track temperature stays low, just over 20 degrees now, so at least it's going in the right direction in terms of getting heat into the tyres. But for the packed field of cars coming out to play in this GT4 European Series race, anything is in prospect. It's really, really hard to predict. And of course, all of them think about that first corner, the double right-hander, the banked corner you can see at the far end of the shot. That's Tarzan. Packed grid of cars. We had some fantastic racing yesterday in mixed conditions, and through it all came Phoenix Racing with the number one Audi, Cedric Freiberghaus and Nikolai Moller-Madsen. But of course today the grid is shifted around because the second driver was the driver who set the qualifying time, and it's Daniel Mackay, whose McLaren is on the front row. But let's go down to the grid to the car on the outside of the front row, because Max Cobalt has been caught by Dakota at the front of the grid.
Max, not such a bad place to be, on the front of the grid in your home race. What is it like racing around your home track? You know, you live about 20 minutes away from here, you said. This is a track you've grown living and breathing and racing on. Does that hold an advantage for you here today?
I hope so. Yeah, of course the field is strong, but yeah, I grew up on this track. I learned to drive here on this track, so I know every in and out here. So yeah, they say it's difficult to overtake here, but I know some spots you can try it. So yeah, we have a good position here from P2, and yeah, for the championship, one competitor is there. One competitor is behind us, so yeah, it will be a fun race, and yeah, let's score some good points for the last race at Nürburgring.
Now the track conditions are really interesting today. It's been rain, sunshine, rain, sunshine. What do you think it's going to do next? Come on, you know this track.
I don't know. Really, the weather is really unpredictable. It can rain. I live here 20 minutes from there. It can rain. Here it can be sunshine, or the other way around. It's really difficult to know, but it looks like it stayed dry now. So I hope it stay dry. Will be not so nice to drive on slicks in the wet again, but we'll see.
We'll see. Good luck. Thank you very much, Max.
Thank you, Dakota. Down with the driver right at the sharp end of the championship. That's Max Cobalt, the Dutch racer, sharing with his Polish teammate Jan Kisiel, who's on board. Jan was really strong when conditions were tricky yesterday. That's the Lippert Motorsport Mercedes, the Akit Vachon number 14 McLaren on the front row. Then J.D. Vandenbalk in the best of the best of the Aston Martins. It's number 7, but of course in Aston Martin James Bond it has to be 007. And Street Art Racing, a team that just seems to get stronger and stronger. It's supported Aston Martin for many, many years, run their cars. And he's sharing with Julian Darras, and between them they featured pretty strongly yesterday. But it was an up and down sort of race. Lots of drivers slipping when things became tricky. And just to reiterate, the number one racing winning car from yesterday is down in about 14th place. It's the red Audi, just looking for it in shot. In fact, it's just out of shot at the moment. GT4 European Series, Simon Knapp, Dutch racer. This car has been going so well this season. Simon sharing with American racer Alec Udell, but the driver who started yesterday goes second today, so it's Simon's turn to be on board the car. They finished in 6th yesterday. In fact, that's their worst results since the second round of the championship. So always competitive, with track conditions always changing here. It's hard to predict who is going to be at the very front end, but certainly the McLaren on pole position didn't have a top result yesterday. 4th, which by their standards is poor. Benjamin Lessen started yesterday, but it's Daniel Mackay's turn in that McLaren. Second of the Lippert Motorsport Mercedes. Marcus Pavler kicked off yesterday. It's the German racer, Lucy Treffs, who gets going today. One of a number of really, really young racers who are stepping straight into GT cars. Lucy picking up the pace through the season. A great mix of manufacturers. Let's take a look at the cars. The McLaren on pole position with Daniel Mackay on board. Jan Kisiel in the best placed. Mercedes second on the grid. Then more variety with the Aston Martin on the left. Jamie Vandenbalk, the Belgian racer. Simon Knapp in his BMW as you get the mix. Then we go back to another Mercedes. That's the number 2 car, kicked off by Lucy Treffs, and Daniel's brother, Ewan Mackay. So 2 Mackays on the front 3 rows. He's in the Ecris Motorsport car. Had a bit of a setback yesterday. Best of the KTM, 7th on the grid, Reinhard Koffler. That crashed yesterday. Mark van der Aar, the sister MDM Motorsport BMW. Then this Jeunesse is going better and better. Jorge Catalan alongside Jan Kasperlik in the best of the Porsche Caymans. Matt Cowley, Academy Motorsport Aston Martin, and the car that finished second yesterday, Olivier Hart's V8 Racing Camaro. Then yesterday's winning car, the #1 Audi on the left of the screen, Cedric Freiberghaus, Alex Lamberts racing for Bullet Racing. The first of the Alpines, number 35, Alain Ferte. Do you remember that name? Yes, fantastic racer in Formula 2 and then Formula 3000. Angelique de Tavernier and Alessandro Giovanelli sharing the Celisla Racing team. Mercedes further back down the grid. Second of the number 24 KTM, way down from where you'd expect. It's in the hand of Nikolai Elganyan, American racer, but he's got a real star in the other driver, in Mads Siljerhaug. Expect progress in the second half of the race. And that brings us right up to the final row of the grid. Look out for the progress. Marius Sug, the number 111 BMW, starting 28th and last, because that is a car that got crashed before it set a flying lap in qualifying. That's why it's down at the tail end of the grid. Don't quite know why that Camaro is parked quite so sideways in the bottom left-hand corner, maybe to catch my attention, but or maybe it was late to its grid position, but the board is being shown, waiting for the formation lap. 1 hour of racing. Yesterday's winner, the #1 Audi, that is starting mid-grid today. Second place yesterday, the 68 V8 Racing Camaro. That is also down in mid-grid. You see at the bottom of your shot. But it's a chance for the order to be turned around, and it's the Equipe Vachon McLaren that leads them away around the field. Dan Mackay getting a sight at all these drivers, looking to see where the track is at its wettest, because it's been raining during the previous race. It is drying out. The older of the Mackay brothers has pole position. His younger brother Ewan starting from 6th. It is a family affair. They're racing for different cars for different teams. It's the McLaren at the front and the Equus Motorsport BMW that Ewan is driving, starting from 6th. That's a car that went right at the sharp end of the field yesterday. Here's the championship. We heard from Max Cobalt on the grid. He's championship leader with his teammate Jan Kisiel. Simon Knapp and Alec Udell always in the mix there on 111. But Dan Mackay, Benjamin Ascent lost a few points yesterday, but it's really tight at the top. But Mollem, Madsen and Freiberghaus, yesterday's winners, closing in effective 4th place overall. And that's the Silver Cup, that's the Pro lineup. We have the Pro-Am Championship as well, the Am Championship also, so 3 championships within one, if you will, as the field goes around. This is the Pro-Am Cup. Marcus Pavarud and Lucy Treffs, they're starting well up the grid. Lucy starting in 5th place today. Marius Zug and Gabriele Piana, they're the cars starting stone last in 28th. But expect a recovery drive from then. But then again, if we have another little flurry of rain, it means we go down to having a single racing line. At the moment, we seem to have most of the track a little bit damp just off the racing line, but there's enough of the width possibly for 2 cars to go side by side. In the Am Cup, it's Clement Seiler and Pascal Bachmann, a tidy lead in their Aston Martin ahead of David Loja and Eric Mouet in the little Alpine, enters them by CMR. Luke Brahm is also running in the Am Cup. He's running in a Camaro today, showing me Duncan Houseman. He's starting some way down the field, in fact down in about 20th position or so. But right now, for all these runners ahead of this 1 hour race, there's a driver change midway through, between 25 minutes into the race and 35 minutes into the race. They can time their pit stops according to, are they being obstructed by the car ahead, or is there going to be clean space in the pit lane around them to make their pit stop without interruption. But right now, for all these drivers, it's getting a feel for their cars, how much grip is available today, how much is going to be available next time around. It's been a changeable feast on this Sunday morning at Zandvoort. And heat in the tyres. With the track temperature, the last time we saw a graphic, it was about 21 degrees. They could have expected a lot more in July, but it's been a coolish weekend. But for now, it's dry. Will it be dry all the way through to the end of an hour of racing? We will find out. Track temperature, I said 21 degrees, it's just dropped 2 degrees, just like that. Air temperature staying stubbornly low. In fact, both of those have dipped because the sun has dipped behind clouds recently and will stay there. 2 corners to go. Race officials want them 2 by 2, and we will have 14 rows of cars coming around in pairs. Accelerating, braking in time-honored fashion as the lights are out on the pace car leading them around. That Audi will peel into the pit lane. The front row is a McLaren and a Mercedes. The second row an Aston Martin and a BMW, before we get repeats from the manufacturers with a second Mercedes and a second BMW on the third row. KTM on the 4th row alongside another BMW. So a real mixed pack of cars. GT4 racing going from strength to strength. The numbers are growing. The competitiveness is becoming ever tighter. Who is going to come out on top today? The red lights on the starting gantry are on. They cannot floor the throttle until they flick to green, waiting for more of the field to be in the straight line on the start finish straight. I think we're good to go. Who's going to get the power down first? Waiting for the lights to go out. It's a long hold. Who's going to panic first and go for it? So, oh dear, we've lost, unfortunately, the Bullet Racing Mercedes. We've lost a Schrader Motorsport Mercedes, one of the Porsche Caymans, the number 24 KTM Crossbow. It all kicked off. In fact, I think both of the Mercedes at the back of the Porsches in mid-order have been thumped there. I don't know what turned the number 66 Mercedes sideways, but for Alex Lamberts, it was a short ride into the barriers and a change at the lead of the race while looking at all that was happening. Red flag. So it was a race that got going nowhere. So having lost the lead on the run to the first corner, Daniel Mackay will get to do it all over again. Jan Kisiel, who took the lead in the Lippert Motorsport Mercedes. My eye was drawn elsewhere, clearly, with cars bouncing as though a pool table had been given a very big thump with balls bouncing everywhere. And I think it looks like about half a dozen cars have been taken out on the run. Some of them scarcely got to the start-finish line, so the marshals are rushing towards the cars to start the clear-up operation, but I can certainly tell you it looks like the Borusan Automotive BMW is out of the race against the barriers, and certainly the 66 Bullet Racing, the Solus Bullet Racing car this weekend, Alex Lamberts at the wheel and Roman Monti waiting in pit garage, is out of the race. And it was a good start from the BMW to move up into third place. Simon Knapp got ahead of Jamie Vandenbout. Jamie Vandenbout, in fact, well, of course, it doesn't matter because we go back to a completely fresh start. Fair bit of debris up and down right in front of the grandstand on the start-finish straight as cars went left, went right, and drivers tried to guess which way they could go in avoidance. And unfortunately, it's frequently diminishing returns. You plump for one way and the traffic suddenly moves into your path. So a little bit of damage down, well, quite a lot of damage down the grid. And the rescue vehicles will already be moving out onto the track as the field snakes around. It'll be interesting to see if they bring the field into the pit lane because the track is completely covered. So they don't want the cars going over all that debris on the track. They will peel them right as soon as they come out of the final corner, keep them hard right, and then enter the pit lane, I'm fairly sure, unless they bunch them up before the penultimate corner. But they do not want these cars going over all the debris, and there's a fair bit of it on that start-finish straight after that shunt. So in fact, the safety car is waiting to catch them at the penultimate corner. There's the red flag, and the marshal's giving instructions for the field to come to a halt. So they won't be going to the pit lane. They'll be forming up before the penultimate corner. You can see the grandstand, the top left side of your screen. The cars that have crashed are in front of that on the start-finish straight, some of which scarcely got to the start line because mid-grid, if a car start exploding left and right, that leads to clearly a concertina action in behind. And always here, of course, you've got the funnel towards the end of the pit lane, but it was before that that the cars started going left and right. And the car that most clearly one suggests was given a tap from behind and snapped sideways was Alex Lambert's number 66 Bullet Racing Mercedes. That went to stage left, sitting there with the bonnet high in the sky. The yellow Aston Martin number 61 Academy Motorsport also sitting across the track. We've got the KTM number 24 on the pit wall side with its lid up so the drivers could get out, but a real scattering of cars there. Fiona James is the 61 Aston Martin that's sitting sideways across the track for Academy Motorsport. So it's red flag, and with good reason, and I'll show you why. Here's a replay of the start, 28 cars in straight order. It was a long hold, and maybe some people further back down the order decided to go. Well, Alex Lamberts came across the track, the Schrader Motorsport, Jan Reinig driven car, Mercedes given a clonk there. Let's take another look. Yeah, straight across the track, and the orange and black Mercedes just obscured, then bounced off the pit wall, came back across, hit the Porsche Cayman. The KTM was given a blow. The Aston Martin tried to guess which way to go. The Borusan Automotive BMW on the right-hand side on the grass as the Porsche Cayman continues to snake and slide in the hands of Konstantin Scholl. But it really was a series of dramatic effects from one manoeuvre. One suggests a move from left-hand side of grid to right, and those behind left with nowhere to go. Certainly for Jan Reinig, the very, very tall German driver, he was presented with no choices whatsoever. So I'm afraid it looks as though we've lost, well, Nikolai Elganyayan in that 24 KTM Crossbow. That's out of the race. The Borusan Automotive car clearly not got the right number of wheels on it anymore. That's hard against the barriers on the other side of the track. So that was a very, very short race start indeed for Levin Kochabayek. Okay, that is indeed the Borusan Automotive crew talking to their drivers, the two Turkish drivers on board that. There's Fiona James's number 61 Aston Martin. And it really has to be counted as a short race if you don't quite even get 100 meters past the start-finish line. So dramatic moments at the start of the GT4 European Series race. We'll have to do it all over again. There's only one driver that's really heaving a big sigh of relief, apart from those just checking that their teammate is okay, and that's Daniel Mackay, who didn't get the best of start from pole position. And up into the first corner, Jan Kisiel took that yellow Lippert Motorsport Mercedes into the lead of the race, but alas, he'd only got 2 corners into that lead and the red flags were flown because of all the debris on the start-finish straight. And the remaining runners, shorn of at least 6 cars, formed up before the penultimate corner of the lap. They're waiting for signals to where they can go. You can see the clean-up, obviously with various liquids spilt. You can see the start-finish line. That's how far some of the cars got. Bottom of the screen, and they got 10, 20 metres past it. But the car's being cleared up in very quick order. That flatbed in position to see what it can do. Let's have another look at the start. It was all clean and tidy. Look at the right-hand side of your screen. There's a grey and red Mercedes just ahead of that little blue Alpine, and at the start decided to come, had to go further across because the Camaro in front of it was also trying to go to the left to form the middle ground. The Schrader Motorsport Mercedes, number 777, nowhere to go. And for those behind, there was even less space to go. They had to guess, had to go. There will have been some close escapes for people trying to dive their way through. But for many a person, the obstruction arrived in their path, and there was nothing they can do about it. So for Nikolai Elganyayan in the number 24 KTM Crossbow, across for his second taste of European racing, his second event here at Zandvoort, and it hasn't had the dream result that yesterday's did when he stood high on the podium in 3rd place, having shared a great run with Mads Siljehaug in that True Racing KTM. More rescue vehicles coming around because clearly a large number of cars scattered over the start-finish straight, but the clear-up work is going on at great pace, it must be said. They're working very hard indeed down on the grid. We will have a clean start. We cannot count back. Let's have another look. Looking from a high, look on the left-hand side of your screen. You can see the blue, well, already you could see the Camaro to its right, driver's right. The Mercedes behind was already heading that way, had to swerve further to the right, clattered into the 77 Mercedes from Schrader Motorsport, and in behind you can see avoidances everywhere, but very, very tricky indeed for those at the back end of the field. It's always the case. The best place to start quite clearly is the front of the grid. Jan Kisiel took that advantage down into the out of the first corner, into the lead of the race for Lippert Motorsport, but we will form up in grid formation all over again. And again, let's take a look. This time let's watch how Jan Kisiel in the yellow Mercedes gets a clean start. It's a long hold, it's a clean start at the front row of the grid, but once you look past the first 5, all the action is in behind. Kisiel continues to accelerate as the sister Lippert Motorsport car tries to keep out of the way, out of the bottom of our shot. Still with Dan Mackay in the lead of the race in the McLaren, but as the cars scattered in the background, a passing manoeuvre was made down into Tarzan and out the other end of the corner. It was the Mercedes in front, but almost immediately Jan Kisiel was confronted with a red flag, meaning he'd have to do it all over again, very quick to stop this race. Still waiting for that 61 Aston Martin, Fiona James's car, to be lifted clear. A lot of those fluids have now been treated with cement dust, and that will hopefully make it a safer racing circuit when we get to go racing all over again. No further messages on the timing screens, but at the moment Alex Lambert's out of the race in the Bullet Racing Mercedes. That's car number 66. Jan Reinig in the Pro-Am class. He's showing his Schrader Motorsport Mercedes with Dominic Schrammel. He's out of the race. But let's go down to the grid. We've seen the 61 Aston Martin sideways, and Dakota has caught up with the driver who was unfortunate to be at the wheel, Fiona James.
I am indeed with Fiona James. Now you're okay, are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, it was just a bit of a hard hit, but I think all the safety stuff works as it should. So,
what do you think happened in your perspective?
I saw some cars start to go, so I tried to avoid them, and I missed the first few going up, and then I just got walloped by somebody into the wall. So.
And is the car ridden off?
I don't think it'll be a write-off, but yeah, the whole wheel and suspension is all flying through the air, so yeah.
But it's not going to stop you from racing, right?
They're just lifting it onto the car now.
Don't look. It's better not to look. Yeah. But you're still not encouraged from, you're still going to keep racing?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's part of racing, isn't it? So if you can't deal with that, then you've got no business being out.
And it's great to see how fast the emergency teams get out, get to you. Isn't it great?
Yeah, the marshals were all brilliant. They were all coming out and checking everyone was okay really quickly. So yeah, straight away they were out checking everyone.
Go get a nice cuppa.
Thank you very much to Fiona James and Dakota down there. But Fiona, absolutely sanguine. In fact, on about the ultimate the next look at the replay, she worked really hard to guess which way to go. And you can see, as she said, she got past a couple, but then diminishing returns, and the field just came across and took the front off her Academy Motorsport car, pitching it sideways in the track. There is a driver who's seen it all over before, Ricardo van der Ende, shrugging his shoulders, but his car is still okay. And in Ewan Mackay's hands, it will start the restart in 8th place. A few drivers missing, none of the drivers in front of him, but you can just see how much liquid went down as the Borusan Automotive BMW still needs to be cleared. Let's take another look at the restart. It was very tidy at the front, but it was a long hold, and it's in the middle, just in front of the Alpine on the right-hand queue. Mercedes dives to its right, but already Olivier Hart is trying to do the very same thing in front, making the 66 car go further to the right. The 777 Mercedes had nowhere to go and then cut straight back across the track. No fault of driver Jan Reinig. He's just simply hanging onto the steering wheel. Physics does what it does. But in fact, just talking about the 777 car, it's just being driven past us, and its front end is somewhat shorter than it should be. And with a driver who's 7 foot tall on board, that's not a good thing to have. But Jan Reinig appears to be okay. The car is not. Still about 4 more cars to be moved away from the grid until these cars can come round onto the grid that we covered, as we saw, in cement dust as they've tried to clear up all the liquids dropped by those crashing cars. The shards will have been swept clear. The marshal's working really, really hard. You can see the track sweeper in there doing its job. We're set for a full restart. I won't look for any further signals, still listed as going back to a 1 hour start of the race. That's what it's supposed to run to, but we see if that gets trimmed. The Aston Martin of Fiona James is now on the left of the screen, up on one of the back of one of those rescue vehicles, and I think that will just leave. I can't see if the KTM Crossbow has been moved from pit wall. There's one on stage right, which is probably the Bullet Racing Mercedes, the 66 car, and on the left there's still the BMW and possibly one other car from Borusan Automotive. For these drivers, of course, they won't have seen any replays. They do not know what's happened. They know the red flags are thrown. Their teams might have radioed and let them know that 6 cars are now out of the race, but they will have to do it all over again, and we will form up again in the correct grid, the original grid positions. Well, let's go down because Dakota's moved up to Borusan Automotive, and she's got Levent Kokobik.
Not a way to start a race, really. Are you okay, though?
I'm fine, yeah, fine. It was a big impact. Nothing I could do, you know. I saw two cars go into the wall on the right, and they just, you know, ricocheted off into the middle of the road, and had nowhere to go. Tried to go to the left, but got the impact, and the car on the left hit me too also. So yeah, got stuck.
And the damage to your car, we obviously saw it in the wall.
Yeah, very big damage. Front left tires came off on the first impact, I think, and just, yeah, I guided the car to the wall and safely got out. Hopefully nothing happened to anyone, but big crash, yeah. I
was just talking to Fiona, who was obviously right beside you as well, and she said it was really nice to see how the medical team reacted so quickly. Yeah, they were very good. Yeah, thankfully, I think no one got injured. So yeah, hopefully nothing will happen to anyone. No, nothing comes up later on. On to the next one, right? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dakota down with Levent Kokobik, who's been in and out of that Turkish car, sharing it with Ibrahim Okyay, but suitably sanguine. Of course, drivers know these things can happen. They try to guess correctly, but when you're at the tail of the field, your options are certainly limited. Those at the front will be feeling very relieved indeed. The field did get really quite bunched there, and I think it was a long hold that some of the drivers just were becoming a little concerned. They were getting closer and closer to the cars in front, who were waiting for the lights to go from red to green, and when it did, some reacted with a little bit more of a swerve than others, and I guess that's what really triggered all of that incident down on the start-finish straight here. But I sense that we may have a restart relatively soon. We've still got a couple of rescue vehicles on the start-finish straight. I think the clear-up operations, one more car to be shifted, but for all those drivers sitting out on that ahead of the final corner, yes, it's still the Borusan Automotive car, Kokobik's car, waiting to be cleared. As you can see, considerable front end damage to that, but the track itself is now pretty much cleared. Okay, just receiving comment about what is going to happen. The cars that are stored up before the penultimate corner will be brought through the pit lane, and then when they go to their start of the race, they'll be in correct grid order, and they will start behind the safety car. That is the official notification of what will be happening. happening. But right now, the drivers out there still probably in the dark. They won't have seen any of the images as to what happened, but they'll know that it was a big ricocheting multi-car accident, not the sort of accident we want to see at all. But the good news is only one car left to be cleared up. The drivers, from what we gather, all seem to be okay. We've heard from a couple of them. We heard from Fiona James and then Levin Kokachbik, and they were both okay. And well, in true racing driver fashion, looking forward to their cars being repaired and going out to play next time around. When I say play, I mean race, and race very seriously indeed. So the last few course vehicles, as that BMW was about to be hoiked away from the barriers, and now the cars that will continue to do the restart of the race, the new start of the race, if you will, being brought round into the pit lane as per instruction. It looks like the McLaren should be moving to the front of the queue because we will be having a brand new start, as far as I understand, waiting for any official notification to the contrary of what I've just been told, but all should form back up in grid formation. There they are, as per instruction, leading into the pit lane, but to my mind that Mercedes should be behind the McLaren, but let us find out if they get sorted out once they're running around the lap. So for a lot of these drivers, it'd be their first chance to see the start-finish straights, well, all of them, since they took the race start. These are the lucky ones who got away with it. The first 5 rows of the grid got away cleanly. It was what happened in behind. And unfortunately, obviously, cars were going left, cars were going right. For those at the tail end, their options were down to minimal as they tried to guess their way through the pack. Cars are now being held, or is it simply the one that was at the front of the queue that had taken the advantage before the red flag has now had to hand it back? So the pole starting car back into pole position. Dan Mackay, the Scottish racer, then second in line now, Jan Kisiel. They'll have to try and do it all over again, but the restart will not be a rolling start. As far as I understand, it will be behind a safety car, and therefore that means they'll be line astern. There it is, confirmation. Restart behind safety car. They will be line astern as the last of the cars make their way into the pit lane. Will form up at pit exit, and then when the track recovery has been cleared, they will start line astern formation, and that means definite advantage to the poleman Dan Mackay, and he's going to have to try and keep that. He keep for sure McLaren at the very front of the queue, but Jan Kisiel, championship leader with his teammate Max Cobalt, will start from second place, and he'll try and get past as fast as he possibly can. A little more sorting of the grid order there. The number 2 Mercedes should be starting from 5th place. That's the second of the Leipert Motorsport cars, Lucy Treffs. So a little bit of juggling of those. Once they get to the second half of the pit lane, they are all in the correct order. You needed the number 2 Mercedes ahead of the number 8 Ekris Motorsport M4. Then the number, yeah, that's right. Then number 16 is next in the line. That's the True Racing Reinhard Koffler driven KTM, a car I really actually quite fancy for doing well in this race. So the BMW on the right-hand side of the screen is about, are we getting some tension in those? No, they haven't got the straps attached as yet, but they will be clearing that as soon as they can. Slightly tricky because its nose is hard against the barrier. It's rather blunted nose, it must be said. Yep, now off terra firma onto the truck. So the sad side to the Borusan Automotive BMW being cleared up, but at least that now means once it's been shifted back into the paddock, the team can assess what the damage is and final clear up from where it's been standing against the barriers, and we can go racing all over again. Just to reiterate, a restart behind the safety car, and that means Dan Mackay, who lost the lead around that opening sequence of corners at Tarzan, but as soon as Jan Kisiel took the lead, he saw the red flags, had to back off, and of course the cars then had to form up before getting back towards the pits. They're now in the pits waiting for that restart, and the last of the rescue vehicles just about to leave the start-finish straight. So well done to the rescue crews and the marshals for clearing up what was a very, almost like an explosion on the start-finish straight, with cars to the left, cars to the right, and quite a lot of innocent parties just had to guess, and some got it right, some did not. And that's why we're missing, I believe, 6 cars from the field. And the driver who seemed to get through it all was another BMW driver, Marius Zug, who was qualified stone last, 28th on the grid, because he didn't set a flying lap. But look out for him in the race. He got through all that from the very tail of the field. The RN Vision STS M4. Marius Zug, the Swiss racer, German racer, would do the first half of the race and hand over to his Italian teammate, Gabriele Piana. That's the number 111 BMW. Remember that car, remember that number, because that is sure to be coming up through the order. Just waiting for the support arms to be raised and pivoted back in on the rescue truck. The last of the cars to be stretchered away back to the paddock. Now this is a driver I really think has a very good chance. He's starting down in 7th position on the grid. Car number 16, the KTM Crossbow, cinching those belts tighter. Reinhard Koffler, the Austrian, who just is such a great driver in KTMs. He's been driving for quite a while, and sometimes he just pulls out an astonishing performance, most notably on tracks that are quite twisty. He's flown in past in circuits like Misano, and this year he's got a very, very strong driver pairing with Patrick Niederhauser. So 7th could yet manifest a podium result. And don't forget too that car number 1, yesterday's winner, is starting some distance down the grid, starting outside the top 10. And its immediate target is Olivier Hart's V8 Racing Camaro that starts 1 position ahead. The big metallic blue Camaro. And then in behind, the little red R8 LMS from Phoenix Racing. As the marshals work their way back to their marshalling posts, moving away from the front of the grandstand where all the cars that were involved in that incident had been littered across the circuit, both sides on the grass against the pit wall. They've been cleared up. There's Eric Mouet's car, and that's always a feature in the AM class. The only Alpine this weekend entered by CMR. And Borusan Automotive BMW now going down, will turn right on the flatbed and go into pit exit, then immediately into the paddock behind. So I think we're getting quite close to the restart of this race. And if you just turned on to find out why we're not deep into this 1 hour race, the second of the 2 GT4 European Series races here at Zandvoort, is because we didn't get past the start-finish line with a great deal of success. And Dan Mackay will start for a second time from pole position. 6 cars eliminated in that start line shunt. And right now, it's the McLaren that will have the advantage. The car that briefly got into the lead of the race, Jan Kisiel, in that number 4 Weipert Motorsport Mercedes, will start from second and have to try and take the lead all over again. He's looking quite cheery, so he could. That would have given him some great confidence down at Tarzan. And one thing that's happened, it's been in and out, little light rain showers so far today, but the good thing is that it's been dry throughout all of this rescue occasion. The only wet patches are the damp patches on the track where the liquids have been dropped. That's got cement powder on it. It does mean the circuit has a bigger dry line than it had before. In fact, it's probably pretty much a uniform dry line around the circuit, whereas when they started this race or went around to make the first start, there were still damp lines towards the edge of the circuit. So it should make it slightly easier for them. I'll have a weather check. I'll look out the window. It's a grey day, but there are little patches of blue sky. And it looks like it's going towards sun rather than rain, so that's very good news for all involved. Fans, as ever at Zandvoort, the loyal fans, they get high in the grandstand. A lot of them, though, their main concern, apart from watching the racing, is keeping the wind away from them. It's not too windy, but a lot of them sitting up there with their hoods up, hunkering down. But as soon as the racing starts, they'll forget that they're concerned about the wind. Temperature starting to rise again. Track temperature going up. It's been bobbing up and down. It got as high as 21 degrees. Air temperature resolutely staying around 16, 17 degrees. I think it got up to 18, but that was clearly too hot. It's cooled down again. So it's definitely a day for a jacket. A minute to go. There's the 1 minute board at pit exit. Lights ablaze on top of the Audi pace car that will lead them round. Here is the pole start. You have to do it all again, but not with a rolling start in 2x2 formation, but behind the safety car. Safety car will put its lights out, it will peel off, it will dive into the pit lane, and then it will be for Daniel Mackay to try again to stay ahead of Jan Kisiel in the bright yellow Weipert Motorsport Mercedes. Aston Martin in the mix as well, starting third on the grid. Jamie van den Balk. Real mix of cars. And up at the tail of the field, the 111. That is the car that will be starting stone last for a second time. Marius Zug hoping to pick his way up the order before handing over to Gabriele Piana. It's definitely quick enough. That RN Vision STS BMW M4, definitely quick enough, but having stumbled in a wet qualifying session, wet-dry qualifying session, not set a flying lap, they're paying the price, but already, in theory, they've gained 6 positions with those 6 cars being eliminated at the first time of asking. So the clock is on the move. It's a 1 hour race. We are underway. As you can see, the clock counting down, and the cars still leaving the pit lane. Those two Celislaw Racing Team Mercedes, green ahead of yellow, which is Angelique de Tavernier ahead of Alessandro Giovanelli. New driver lineups for them this weekend. They're sharing respectively with Kai van Berlo and Bob Herber, a pair of Dutch drivers. And as the last car leaves the pits, not the one flashing its lights, but the one right behind, that's the RN Vision STS BMW. We are underway. The safety car will lead them around. One would suggest, well, I'm going to look at the lights. I don't want to make a guess that he will peel off at the end of this lap, but I would think it's eminently sensible and eminently possible that he will do that. But what the drivers need to do is get as close as they can. They should be running line astern. Don't want to lose any extra time as the field strings out behind the safety car, rumbling around. It's a 2-driver race. It's a 1 hour race. Pit stops between 25 minutes into the race and 35 minutes into the race. Some distance off, but it's a dry track now. Little patches slightly damp. Wettest part of the circuit was on the return run back to the Hans-Ernst-Bock this morning. And at one point, the rain was falling only at Schevelach, only at the trickiest corner of all, the one with the least visibility as you go in. So we had a few spinners in earlier races, but right now the track is getting drier by the moment. Heat in the tyres, a track that's not offering a lot of heat up. Yesterday's race-winning #1 Audi from Phoenix Racing in the line there. And it'll be Cedric Freiberghaus, the Swiss racer, who starts it today before handing over to the Dane, Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Safety car will be in next lap, and a little message on screen as well as that, so they'll do 2 laps behind the safety car. That was my guess. First, yeah, there, the light's still going, it's on to the start-finish straight. Car number 66 under investigation for its start. That was the move that had Alex Lamberts going to his right and to his right and to his right. And as the cars kick up the dust on the start-finish straight, that is the scene where all the debris was cleared up, and number 66 under investigation for its involvement in that incident. That incident took out 6 of the runners. So a haze of dust, most of the drivers wisely staying off it, but it is on very much the racing line on the run down towards Tarzan. Here's the tightest corner on the circuit, the Hugenholzbocht, a dropping entrance, a very sharp, effectively long left-hander. Then you rise up, drivers run right out to the curb, accelerating hard over this twisting wonderful S into the Robert Slottermacher box, where the track goes to driver's left, and then the best corner on the circuit into Schevelach. Safety car in at the end of this lap, as we were told. So all the drivers need to get close to each other if they want to stay in the hunt. Dan Mackay leading around in the Akit Vachor McLaren. Jan Kissel giving chase, or he will be, in the Lippert Motorsport Mercedes. That's the bright yellow one, number 4. It's in second place. Jamie Vanderbilt, the white Aston Martin, in behind. Simon Knapp. I quite fancy Simon having an attack very early on. He's starting 4th in that number 25 BMW from MDM Motorsport. Then the second of the yellow Mercedes from Lippert Motorsport, that's Lucy Treffs leading the Pro-Am class. And then Ewan Mackay in a car that always goes well, Ekris Motorsports M4. Snaking around the dunes, exiting the Hans-Ernst-Bocht. 2 corners to go. A right, followed by another right, the slightly banked Arie Luijendijk-Bocht that feeds the cars onto the start-finish straight. Ewan Mackay can control this restart. He can pick the moment when to go. The lights have gone out. The safety car has pulled out of the way even now as they flash into the final corner of the circuit. The safety car would have gone, but he's already put the pedal to the floor. The throttle is planted. Daniel Mackay leading from Jan Kissel, JB Vandenberg, all in grid formation. Slight gap. Simon Knapp, bigger gap back to Lucy Treffs, who's got right behind him the second of the Mackays, right on his tail. Ewan Mackay looking very feisty indeed. Already pulling out to make a passing manoeuvre. Oh, that Aston Martin in 3rd place was very loose indeed. JB Vandenberg pulled it back into line. Now, all behind his tidy. Look at little KTM starting to make progress. Reinhard Koffler trying to go past. Ewan Mackay can't make it stick. Stays back in 7th place. Right in behind Mark van der Aar in 8th place, the second of those MDM Motorsport BMWs. Very tidy through the Hugenholz box. Bit of a gap back to Jorge Catalan and Matt Cowley fighting over 9th place. in their wake. But tidy start by Dan Mackay. He had the advantage on the restart. He was the one that could choose when to plant the throttle. He accelerated earlier than those behind expected. That gave him a 1 car length advantage. He turned it into 2. And right now, Jan Kisiel in second place is having to resist a really, really fierce charge. Because right on his tail, he's got Jamie van der Bout. Look, van der Bout is more than interested in trying to move up into that second position. That's very, very good news indeed for the race leader, because Kisiel in second will be fighting hard. Far harder than he wants to. Looks like we've got a possible change of place. As Ewan Mackay lost out to Reinhard Koffler. Is the KTM ahead? Yes, but it's on the outside line. They're turning to the left, the long, long left onto that infield straight. And I sense the KTM has pulled off the manoeuvre. That was very bold, very brave. And again, just shows the amazing handling capabilities of the KTM crossbow. But then the BMW accelerates the harder, could get the power down sooner. Down that infield straight, he's back in front as they get to the Hans Ernst Bock. The tight right, followed by the double left-hander. So the KTM gained a position and then immediately handed it back. And Aston Martin in the background is making progress up into 9th place. Excuse me there, cough. Matt Cowley's got ahead of the Ginetta, driven by Jorge Catalan. But first to second has suddenly come good in this battle. It was the second place car that was being challenged, and now that's doing the challenging. Jan Kisiel in the Mercedes right onto the tail of Dan Mackay. And he's dropped Jamie van der Bout in the Aston Martin. Van der Bout wasn't so good on the brakes last time. He's just got it fine down here. The KTM just lost another position. About to lose 2 positions down the start-finish straight. He'd already lost ground to Ewan Mackay. In came Mark van der Aar, went past the 26 BMW, and the Aston Martin, and Matt Cowley's having a very, very good run indeed. That will at least cheer up Fiona Wood. Teammate car putting it into the top 10 and accelerating up the order. He's got a few more cars to pick it off, but let's enjoy this lead battle. Still the McLaren in the lead of the race. Dan Mackay at the front. Jan Kisiel dropping back as he did at this point of the lap last time around, but don't forget when they came out of the final corner, the yellow Mercedes was right under the rear wing of the McLaren. Better exit speed out of Schäflach from Mercedes, and in turn faster than both them. Jamie van der Bout having a fabulous race in the 007 Aston Martin. Now, just enough confidence by being just a couple of car lengths clear. It meant that Daniel Mackay could pick his line, but he just doesn't seem to have quite the grip. Well, no, I'll tell you what, he's still just taking the line he wants to take rather than trying to block a challenge from behind. But if we get a 1/10 of a second gain by Kisiel, he won't have the comfort to do that, won't have the option. Fastest car through the first sector on this lap is driving just the back of the shot, Ewan Mackay. 6th place overall, but he's got to catch what is now a 4-car nose-to-tail battle. The second of the yellow Mercedes is trying to catch up to Lucy Treffs, leading the Pro-Am class in 5th place overall. But first and second were together, then first, second and third. Now first, second, third and fourth, and Simon Knapp closes in, and Lucy Treffs looks to be catching the lot of them. This is concertinaing, but in a good way. It's getting tighter and tighter. Down the start for the straight, trying to avoid that dust. They go, here comes, the track tapers and it narrows and narrows. It looks so third place going to Simon Knapp. Again, Jamie van der Bout twisting and twitching under braking, hard braking for Tarzan. You can tell we're by the seaside. A seagull just flew through the shot, just in off the North Sea. First to second, now starting to make a break. But don't forget, Simon Knapp moved up into third place in that number 25 BMW by dint of sheer speed. Now he's going to accelerate off after those race leaders. And is that Aston Martin falling back in the hands of Jamie van der Bout to the nose of Lucy Treffs? Yes, the yellow Mercedes, the second yellow Mercedes, getting closer and closer to the number 7 Aston Martin. Car number 62, unfortunately, Matt Cowley. Oh no, the Aston Martin that's moved up into 8th place. That's got ahead of Reinhard Koffler as well. Under investigation for possible safety car procedure infringement. That will be very, very galling, because the young Brit putting on a really, really good showing. He's gained 2 positions since the restart. Right now, though, the lead battle. Dan Mackay keeps on getting a little bit clear, and then the Mercedes comes back at him. 0.27 of a second on the start-finish line. It looks like it's very much that right now, but Simon Knapp has caught the pair of them by a tidy chunk of time. That third place BMW getting closer and closer. Jamie van der Bout slightly lonely, because what's happening now is Lucy Treffs has got Ewan Mackay for company. The car in 6th is getting closer and closer. Just banged in the fastest foot sector of anyone. The number 8 Encris Motorsport car. So it is closing up. First through to 6th, 3.3 seconds, and it's coming down all the time. Onto the start-finish straight one more time, and again using the slipstream of the smaller, sleeker McLaren. There's still just enough of an advantage for Jan Kisiel to get a tiny bit of a tow, but a double tow for Simon Knapp in the BMW in the background. And then suddenly we have two trios because Jamie van der Balk and the number 7 Aston Martin has fallen back onto the nose of Lucy Treff's car, and Ewan Mackay in the background of the shot is getting right onto the tail as well. 7th place on his own, Mark van der Aar. Then Matt Cowley in the number 62 Academy Motorsport Aston Martin, Reinhard Koffler and Olivier Hart up to 10th in that number 68 Camaro. Drive-through penalty for Matt Cowley, running in 6th place, 8th place. He's going to have to come in. He's just half a second down on Mark van der Aar, just out of the top of our shot. The car in 6th place is there. That's the Ecris Motorsport BMW, but the car running 2 places further down the order is the one who's got a drive-through penalty to serve, and I'm afraid in a championship as tight and as competitive as the GT4 European Series, a drive-through is the end of any point scoring. Yeah, there's the Aston Martin about to serve a drive-through penalty. Right on the tail of Mark van der Aar's BMW. Reinhard Koffler just still tucked in behind in his KTM, but that silver and black Aston Martin will be serving a drive-through penalty. At Ecris Motorsport, place gained there. Ewan Mackay has gone past Lucy Treff's. So we do have a change. There's Ewan Mackay now in front of the yellow Mercedes, number 2. First to second, just under 0.4 of a second last time around. It goes out and it comes in again all over the place, but this point in the lap, Daniel Mackay normally has a little bit of an advantage in the lead over Jan Kisiel. About as big as the advantage back here, Mark van der Aar over the Aston Martin. Is that Aston Martin going to come in for its drive-through penalty this time around? Has he received a message? This is Matt Cowley in 62 through the final corner. Hasn't received it yet because he's continuing to use the slipstream. He's only interested in one thing, that's passing Mark van der Aar for 7th place overall. Mark van der Aar's sister car is further up the order in 3rd place. Simon Knapp at the wheel of the number 25, doing his very, very best to catch the Mercedes from Lippert Motorsport, number 4, and Dan Mackay still leading. Oh dear, the Ginetta, Jorge Catalan has gone for a rotation. He's deep in the gravel. Is that at Chevrolet? Just trying to take a look. We have a couple of deep gravel traps. Also the penultimate corner we have gravel traps that are deep. Looking at the timing screen, I would suggest, I think it's not. I don't think it's Chevrolet. I think it's a bit further on because he's completed 2 of the 3 timing sectors. Will this lead to interruption? Will this lead to a safety car? We know Dan Mackay is leading. Just had a car reporting into the pit lane. One of the Allied Racing is Jan Kasperlik's Porsche Cayman. He must have picked up a puncture. The pit stop window isn't open, so there we have it, just ahead of the final couple of corners, just into the final corners. As you approach them, you go behind the paddock, and suddenly you've got this great big bank of gravel in front of you, rises high, built onto the side of the sand dune, and that is where the little Ginetta has been deposited. And this is the Konstantin Scholl, Jan Kasperlik, number 22 Porsche. Possibly nursing a little bit, you can see a little bit of a black mark on the front, so a little bit of damage there. Whether that was in the craziness, I suggest it was, of the first start, where one of the 2 cars, whether it was that or the sister car, was troubled on the start-finish line, running down the barriers. So safety car, the field has slowed, the field has backed up, the field is starting to bunch. So here are our first 4, the McLaren of Dan Mackay, Jan Kisiel in the Mercedes in 2nd place, Simon Knapp, the BMW in 3rd, Jamie van der Balk in 4th place. They can see where the car has been deposited. Drive-through penalty still needing to be served by Matt Cowley. Matt in 8th place overall, just coming into the top of your shot. So it's been a race of incident. We've almost reached the quarter distance mark. We had the safety car out. We had a safety car start after the first start was aborted for a multiple accident on the start-finish straight. Few of the drivers in the top 10 had been gaining ground. One of them was Matt Cowley, gained at least 2 positions, but he has a drive-through penalty to serve. The safety car continues to lead the field around. Lucy Treff's, he's lost a place. He's moved back from 5th to 6th, but still leading the Pro-Am class, and leading the Am class, Alessandro Giovanelli, the number 31 Celislor Racing team Mercedes. He's sharing that with Bob Herber, and in the lead of the Am class. The rumbling engine note of one of those 2 V8 Racing Chevrolet Camaros. V8 Racing run their cars in that metallic blue for some time, have a real penchant for American cars, so it fits in with their name. And certainly those Camaros make a really nice, rumbustious rumble as they motor around. Sometimes it's even more of a rumble when they're at lower revs, perversely. It gets a harder note when it comes higher, but it's throatier at lower revs, and they're running at low revs behind the safety car. So Dan Mackay would have been expecting to come in 25 minutes into this race to 35 minutes into this race to make the mandatory pit stop. But as it happens, the safety car is still running around. We've still got plenty of time in the race. Border bunched up. Ground was lost sort of a bit early on by Ewan Mackay, couldn't make an impression. He's picked his way past Lucy Treff, so the number 8 BMW from Equus Motorsport up into 5th place overall. Warming, looks like mulled wine being served for the fans, keeping themselves warm. Oh, the Ginetta has actually got out of the gravel, so seems to have done that all on its own. Took a while to do it, but maybe a bit of gravity. You can see the wheel marks where it ran high into that banked gravel trap, which absolutely did its job. So maybe it means to say as long as he hasn't put too much gravel on the track as he returned, which could catch drivers out going through there, and he's done so just ahead of the safety car leading the field around. Incident between cars 15 and 22 under investigation. Car 15 is the Ginetta that was in the gravel, and car 22 came into the pit lane. We saw that damage on the front right corner, so maybe that wasn't caused by the start-finish line incident. That was caused by a collision between the two that put the Ginetta in the gravel. I'm not Sherlock Holmes. Let's try and join those dots. And it was at the corner at which the Ginetta went off, so it could have been an assist rather than a stumble from Jorge Catalan. Jorge's been very impressive since he joined the championship at Misano. Anyhow, we're going to go racing properly again. The safety car will be in at the end of this lap. Lots of discussion down there, and that's possibly the serving of the notice. No, I think it's more about might as well move your car to the pit lane, but there's the damaged front right corner. There's all the hallmarks of having hit a tyre on another car, and shoulders up there from, I think that was Jan Kasperlik. Shrug, these things happen. Cloudy day, but it's higher cloud than it was early on. We had a flurry of rain in the previous race. It certainly spiced up the action, but right now this does not need spicing up at all. It's been a very, very exciting race so far. But for Dan Mackay, lost the pole at the start of the race, lost the lead of the race, but then the race had to be restarted, so he restarted at the front of the queue behind the safety car. We've got a second safety car period, but that's not lasting long. It's going to end at the end of this lap, so this field needs to really start bunching it up. Car 31, that's the car leading the AM class, Alessandro Giovanelli in 13th place overall. Making really quite an impression on his debut, seasonal debut with the Celestar Racing team. In fact, he's doing very well because the sister car is in behind, and the sister car is running in the Pro-Am class. It's in the hands of Angelique de Tavernier at the moment, but she's going to hand over to a silver rank driver, Dutch racer Kai van Berlo. So it's got a strong support, but right now it's the AM pairing of Alessandro Giovanelli, who's at the wheel, and his AM teammate Bob Herber, who will take over. They're winning the Celestar battle, but right now the lights are out on the safety car, through the corner where the Ginetta went high into the gravel on the outside. The safety car scurrying around to get into the pit lane before the hammer has been whacked down by Dan Mackay. He's done it again very nicely indeed, building an advantage over Jan Kisiel. Looking to see who's gaining down the start of the straight. The Aston Martin, number 62, was 8, coming in to serve that drive-through penalty. That will be very, very frustrating. But safety car procedure infringement, not a good thing. A challenge for second place. Simon Knapp, the Dutch racer, looks like he's going to try and take the high line. He's decided to come down to block off the Aston Martin. Holds on to third, does not get second. Kisiel stays second. And leading the race, Dan Mackay has got it right all over again. Where are the moves further down the field? Can't see them coming. Yesterday's race-winning car, Cedric Freiburg-Haus, the number 1 Audi, down in 10th place. He's gained 1 position, of course, by Matt Cowley coming in to serve that drive-through penalty. But yesterday must seem a very long time ago for the Phoenix Racing Audi crew. This is very good. Simon, well, I did not expect to move into shade black. I've seen it before, but very seldom with cars running in the same class. Seized the moment, and I was just about to say this is very good news for Dan Mackay, because as Simon Knapp in the BMW attacks Jan Kisiel for second place, he can escape. The fact is, Simon Knapp has decided he's not waiting any longer, and the Knapp was the Knapp that Jan Kisiel was having, left half a chance going into Shavelak, and it was grabbed with both hands by the local racer. And Simon Knapp now pressing on after the race leader. Ewan Mackay in the number 8 Equus Motorsport car, also looking very, very busy indeed, as he tries to gain a position, tries to pick off the Aston Martin. So what can Simon Knapp do? Can he pull off another magical manoeuvre within a lap? Oh, the Aston Martin working hard, clouting the curbs on the inside of the Hans Ernst Boch. And that is encouraging Ewan Mackay. He realises he's starting to rattle Jamie van den Bulk. First three starting to break here. We saw Van der Belt clouting the curb, losing a little bit of momentum, and that has opened out the gap. The first three have got clear. The Ekris Motorsport car, Ewan Mackay at the wheel. Looks like he's going through, smoking number 17 Aston Martin. Pascal Bachmann, that's the second. Oh, well, you can see why. Left rear tyre about to come off. Sister car, however, 007, a bit skitterish on the exit. The second part of Tarzan, slight banking, able to go up and use it, but still in front, fortunately for him, of Ewan Mackay. But Ewan pushing very hard in the Ekris Motorsport M4, tucked in behind him. Lucy Treffs, the leading Pro-Am car. Mark van der Aar onto the tail of the yellow Mercedes. But the first yellow Mercedes is the one in third place overall. Started second, got into the lead, back into second, now down into third. Jan Kiziel were thinking, what was I doing? How did Simon Knapp even see a gap? Into Shavelak of all corners. This is Shavelak. And Simon Knapp still holding down that second place. Just under a 4/10 of a second down on Mackay at the start of the lap. But what you tend to see is McLaren is very good at the start of the lap, the first half of the lap, then the second half of the lap, and particularly the final quarter is where the other cars, the rivals, seem to have an advantage over it. So advantage at one point and then advantage for the rivals at different points in the lap. But certainly the BMW and the Mercedes coming back at Mackay. Yep, again, just to prove the point, the first part of the lap, advantage to the race leader. Second part of the lap, advantage starting to go to the chasing BMW of Simon Knapp. Number 8 car, Ewan Mackay there, that's the second of the BMW M4s, that's in 5th overall. Simon Knapp having a better run in that second place, number 25 BMW through both the penultimate and final corners. Onto the start-finish straight he goes, the taller M4 chasing after the McLaren at the front of the field. The pit visitor is that number 17 Aston Martin, made it back with that left rear tyre coming off. Crew can chase that, braking tight on the inside line. It's going to start hurting your tyres if you keep doing that. But Dan Mackay, for now, continues in the lead of the race for the Equipe Peugeot McLaren, but Simon Knapp is going to try and dive up the inside at Gerlach Bock. There is no inside, there's half a car's width inside. Hugging the inside line at the Hugenholz-Bock is the McLaren, but who's going to get the better exit? In fact, it's 3 cars covered by, what, a third of a second? First through to third. Daniel Mackay in the McLaren, Simon Knapp in the BMW, maybe trying to seize the moment, trying to put them both off. Jan Kiziel's trying to stick with this battle. Well, he was closer at Hugenholz-Bock, but the 2 cars in front got a better exit. They're pulling clear. Car at 22 under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. Well, that was Jan Kaspelik, but that car is, I understand, let's just double check. Yeah, it's in the pits. That's the car we saw being asked to be moved, so it matters not to them. Their race is done, their race is run. First to third, covered by nothing. Simon Knapp, he has grip that the McLaren simply does not have. Up the inside into tight turn, the corner after the Masters Bock. Will it switch back the other way? Not enough for the lead to change again. It's Simon Knapp properly into the lead of the race. Will the McLaren hang on in second place? Just gets over across the far side of the track to block the best of Jan Kiziel. Kiziel, the pole, thought he might take the outside line, might hang it out and go around the McLaren as well. 1 place lost by McLaren. It could have been 2, but Dan Mackay is made of certain stuff. Fighting hard, very nearly being pushed out of the second part. Was there a touch there? Couldn't quite tell. Second part of the Hans-Ernst-Bock. And then the McLaren fighting back. A bit of a wide moment there for the race leader, so it's getting very, very ragged. Excuse me, too exciting for me just there. Jamie van der Belt now onto their tail as they've been fighting for the top 3 positions. The Aston Martin, number 7, is coming back, and on his tail he's got Ewan Mackay, and on his tail he's got Reinhard Koffler. The KTM is suddenly in this multi-manufacturer, multi-car chase down to the first corner. Enjoy it. 5 makes of cars in the top 6 positions. 2 Mackay brothers. Dan Mackay was leading the race, back into second, the Equipe Peugeot McLaren, and his brother Ewan in the BMW in 5th place overall, the Ekris Motorsport car. Slightly falling away from the tail of this group is Lucy Treffs in the second Lippert Motorsport Mercedes. Oh, a dive down the inside into the Hugenholz-Bock. Not quite enough space for Reinhard Koffler to wrestle 5th place from Ewan Mackay, but by golly, he tried. And while this is going on, teams have got to start considering, is my driver being obstructed? Do I have a driver of equal pace, his teammate, to do the second half of the race? Pit window is now open. This is their option. Reinhard Koffler in the KTM in 6th place there, just ran a little bit wide, ran off the tail, and been right on the tail, almost swapping paint with Ewan Mackay, the Ekris Motorsport car. There's a driver who's impressed, waiting to take over from Simon Knapp, from the race leader, the American racer Alec Udell. They've had a fabulous run, a couple of wins. Paul Ricard has really launched their campaign, and that was They've had 3 races since then, a third, a fifth and a sixth, but today leading the race. And now a change of position, Reinhard Koffler, having dropped off the tail of Ewan Mackay, suddenly makes his move, goes up into 5th place. And having fallen off their tail, Lucy Treffs in the number 2 Mercedes is now right with the BMW, but really it's a 7-car lead battle. Simon Knapp leading the round. Number 17 Aston Martin in the pits all over again. Last time was for a puncture to be replaced. Reporting for possibly just a driver change. Aston Martin, no, Simon Knapp comes in from the lead of the race. He fainted one way, fainted the other, and then I think that makes it 5 of the top 7 cars have pitted as soon as they possibly could. That leaves Dan Mackay in the lead of the race from the driver who started alongside him on the front row, Jan Kisiel. They got rid of that pesky MDM Motorsport BMW, car number 25. There it is in the pit lane, driven by Simon Knapp, about to be driven by his American teammate who goes running out there. Ali Udell plays the role he needs to play in the driver change. Ecris Motorsport car being handed over to Ricardo van der Ende. A whole host of other cars coming into the pit lane, but the first two as they are at this moment, the car that was running second, the car that was running in 3rd place, still out circulating on the track. Dan Mackay ahead of Jan Kisiel. There'll be a little gap back in the background of the shot. You could just make out the Reinhard Koffler KTM, number 16. And in behind him should be the number 26 BMW of Mark van der Aar. Olivier Hart up to 5th, and Alain Ferte up to 6th overall, as the vast majority of the field have pitted. He is now the Pro-Am leader. That the order will be shuffled when those top half dozen cars make their pit stop, whenever that happens. So we've got potential 7 and a bit minutes in which they can make those stops. Pit stops all ordered. They have a very generous minimum time, so they don't need to rush things too much. On the driver changes, the MDM Motorsport car wheeled back out. The Phoenix Racing Audi wheeled back out, so they face a pit exit, waiting for the signal to go. Ricardo van der Ende plants the throttle, trying to remember not to be a bit too vigorous in the pit lane. The Camaro's making moves there. Mark van der Aar is being pushed very hard by the 68 Camaro of Olivier Hart. This is the lead battle. The Koffler KTM trying to close in 3rd place. Still the first two continue. They're clearly going to run deep into this stint before coming into change over to their teammates. So Dan Mackay still leads from Jan Kisiel. That means in the pit lane, waiting for the number 14 car, is Benjamin Lessen, the Belgian racer. And waiting to take over the number 4 Mercedes is Max Cobalt. The Dutchman would very much like a win at home. Getting brighter all the time. Yes, you can see the flash of the headlights, but the glare and glint off the front wings, the yellow wings of that Lippert Motorsport Mercedes, show just how much brighter it's getting out around the circuit. Brighter, drier. The wind continues to dry the patches of the track that are still marginally damp, but I'd say it's almost a full dry racing surface. Still a little bit wet by the front of the pit garages, but it doesn't matter. They're obviously down at pit speed limit when they come past. It's McLaren being driven very well by Dan Mackay. He left 1 half gap and it was taken. But since then, that is that. Nailing down the lead of the race. Jan Kisiel doing all he can. He's half a second down. Now, this is yesterday's race-winning car, the Phoenix Racing Audi. The fact of the matter, it appears to just want to double-check if that's the number 7 car. He's got ahead of the Julian Darras, Jamie Vanderbilt, Aston Martin. That would be a big place change, because it was just out. Last time I looked at the timing screens before the start of the flurry of pit stops, that Phoenix Racing Audi was down in 11th position. Now it looks like it could have got quite decently into the top 10. So out of 2nd place, the Lippert Motorsport Mercedes, Jan Kisiel dives the pits. So that means Dan Mackay is going to be on his own for a while, but not by much, because how far back is it to Reinhard Koffler? 1.2 seconds. The KTM is closing on the McLaren. Still a keep for sure at the front of the field, but the KTM handles so beautifully. Reinhard Koffler at the wheel. And he's got a very, very handy teammate, Patrick Niederhauser, who just seems to win races with a lot of regularity. Shows just how good he is. Final pit garage, you have to park at a diagonal angle, in echelon formation, if you will. And out jumps Jan Kisiel, the pole. In jumps the taller figure of Max Cobalt. Championship leaders trying to make sure there are no fluffs, no mistakes. KTM hunting the McLaren. There's how balanced performance draws all these cars together. Number 16 car bearing marks of a little bit of contact on the left-hand flank. Right on the number on the door, but it was almost 1.3 seconds on the start-finish line. Looks to be about the same, possibly down by 1/10 of a second. There's now almost full sunshine at the back part of the circuit. Very good news indeed. Oh yes, it's definitely under a second. KTM is just a little bit more nimble through the tighter corners, and it really, really does seem to pay. Olivier Hart, just out of the back of the shot. He's about 4.5 seconds further back in third place overall. The 68 Camaro. Alain Ferté yet to pit. Everybody else bar the top four is pitted. Ferté is the Pro-Am class leader, but he will not be once the pit stops have been completed. Into the pit comes the race leader, and Reinhard Koffler stays out for another lap. He is the new race leader. Dan Mackay dives to the Keep for Sure pit. The Camaro of Olivier Hart also into the pit lane. Good to see the 15 Ginetta is still in the race, having had its time stuck up in the gravel trap. Still in final position. In fact, no, it's not going to go back in the race. It's been in the pit. It's not going back out. It's been for more than 10 minutes in the pit, so that's probably more like a retirement. A Keep for Sure, number 14, pulling to a halt. Driver change happening. Benjamin Lecen running out. But Reinhard Koffler, seeing he got to within about half a second, got right onto the tail of that McLaren. Still time to do this lap and one more potentially before. No, I think maybe at the end of this lap would be a wise time to make that pit stop, the obligatory, the mandatory pit stop. Olivier Hart's car will be handing over to quite a few Scottish drivers in the race. We've got Dan Mackay, Ewan Mackay, and Finlay Hutchison, who loves these big V8 rumblers, so he's very happy to be on board that, and they had a good run yesterday. Hart and Hutchison, second place overall, just 6 seconds down on the race-winning Audi. They started down the order today. They're definitely working their way forwards. How good a lap time is being put together by Reinhard Koffler. Looks like a very competitive lap. The car that he was chasing now being pushed back into the pit lane to go back into the race. Car 7. Under investigation for unsafe relief. That's the Aston Martin that seems to, well, that's unfortunate, unsafe relief, and it seems to have lost ground in the pit lane. The number 7 Aston Martin, but don't forget, was running in 4th place before the pit stops. Reinhard Koffler, surely this time, indeed this time, dives the pit, so that is the last of the runners to make a pit stop. The pit stop window will close in 1.5 minutes time, and then we'll have the order re-established. Drive-through penalty for car number 7, just to reiterate, another team that's fallen foul of the rule book and is paying the price. Out on the circuit though, the McLaren has not come out where it wants to. It's lost ground because look, the BMWs are in front. 25 car, Simon Knapp, such a strong run to get to the sharp end of the field, but he's now got the Ecris Motorsport car, both of them ahead of the McLaren there. And the Ecris M4 being driven very hard indeed, as you can imagine, by Ricardo van der Ende. Alec Udell, front of the field. Ecris M4 harrying. Just have to keep a watch on Benjamin Lecen. Is he going to be able to close in on them? Because I think this is going to be quite a fight at the front of the field. Certainly Alec Udell getting quite loose, really pushing the boundaries in that 25 BMW from MDM Motorsport. Yeah, tidier exit there by Ricardo van der Ende. It seems like a long pit stop. It's just a standard pit stop for number 16, the car that stayed out the latest. The True Racing KTM. Patrick Niederhauser at the wheel. Reinhard Koffler did the longest first stint of anyone. Was that the wise tactic? This battle at the very, very front of the group, first, second and third. And it's Alec Udell being pushed really, really hard by Ricardo van der Ende. You can see them both clocking the curbs now. And do I sense the McLaren is fighting back onto their tails? And where would this KTM be? Number 16 car, Patrick Niederhauser has taken it over, and he's stalled. Every second counts, and he's just stalled as the leaders are coming through. That was the chance. Get that going. Lost about 3 or 4 seconds. First, second, and third have gone through. I think the Lippert car has gone through into 4th place. Of course, can't accelerate till the white line. Who else is passing? The Audi of Phoenix Racing is also doing the same. The second of the Lippert Motorsport cars. So for number 16, it stayed out the longest. Was fleetingly in the lead of the race by doing that, but has come out into 6th place. So pretty much has got to do it all over again. It was 6th before the run of pit stops. It looked by running later it might have had an advantage, but that simple, unfortunate incident of stalling the car when trying to leave the pit stop cost 2 or 3 seconds, and those are absolutely vital. So Patrick Niederhauser will be cursing, and in fact Ricardo van der Ende might be cursing because he still can't get past that leading BMW. MDM Motorsport, Ali Cudel, desperate to take a third win of the season. Picked up a pair at Paul Ricard at the start of the month. And would like to, start of June that was, we're now in July. Not that it feels like July, it's not particularly warm here at the North Sea coast, here at the Zandvoort circuit. The circuit that will be back on the World Championship calendar. Formula One will return here. It was 1985 it last came. The circuit's had many lives since then, but great to see a circuit back on the up, a traditional circuit, a circuit that has not just some fabulous corners, most notably Schevelach, and also a group of others, but Tarzan's pretty cool too. But it has a fabulous fan base. And I think when we see this circuit bathed in orange next year, it'll be magical for all people who love traditional circuits being given a shot. Circuits with character, circuits with history. But right now, more pages in history are being added at the front of the field. It's a really, really tight tussle, but the lead of the race, it's Ali Cudel, Ricardo van der Ende right up his rear wing. Benjamin Lessen in the McLaren in third place overall. Max Coburn giving chase in fourth. Well, let's hear from the driver who led away from pole position, because Dakota's caught up with Dan Mackay.
Now, Dan, we're just waiting to see how you're going to reshuffle out. The KTM had a little bit of problem with stalling in the pit lane. That could be good for you. Where do you think you're going to come out?
I mean, I think we've come out P3. We don't quite know how Ricardo's managed to jump us, but the good thing is the Mercedes is behind us, and championship-wise, we're really looking at the Mercedes just now. So for us, it's not such a bad stop. The team did a really good job. I think my entry was so-so. But no, yeah, we've got to fight the Ecris and the MDM till the end, so it should be a good race.
Now that the pit stops is over, it's all just push, 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 push. Is it nerve-wracking watching your teammate and knowing there's nothing you can really do?
I wouldn't say it's fun, if I'm honest, but Ben's brilliant. Like Ben, I'm in a safe pair of hands when Ben's in the car, and I would think that Ben would think the same about me. So I think we trust each other to do the right thing, and if he goes for it and the best we can get is P3, that's the best we can get. So I'm happy with that.
And how's the car running at the moment?
Yeah, really good, really good. Tire deck's a bit better today than it was yesterday, so I think Ben should have a bit more to push with and to defend with if he needs to. But it looks like Ricardo and I think it'll be Napa or Adele, I can't quite tell, getting quite feisty at the front. So hopefully they'll slow each other down and bring us back into, and that McLaren engine can just sing past the pair of them.
Sing past the thing. We all like that. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dakota, down there with Dan Mackay, who led away from pole position. His car is indeed in third place overall. Fourth, number 14 McLaren, and he had a ringside seat just while the interview was going on. Ricardo van der Ende in the number 8 Ecris Motorsport M4 got airborne, thumped the curb on the approach to Schevelach, only just got it back onto terra firma, got the car settled before the most fearsome corner on the circuit. He is pushing super hard, but Ali Cudel has the answers, and in fact, on this lap alone, the McLaren has started to close in again, but last time around it was 1.6 seconds. Take a look at the replay. Hit the curb on the inside. How high do you want your rodeo ride to be? Here it comes. Off the circuit, I'd say that was 3.5 wheels off the black stuff, and no wonder the chasing Benjamin Lessen thought this could be good for me, but he's still in third place in the McLaren. It's still the 25 BMW at the front of the field for MDM Motorsport. For Ali Cudel, had a lead of 0.6 of a second. That was big by the standards of the restart of this race, ahead of Ricardo van der Ende, but van der Ende pulling out all the stops in his attempt to keep up. Leading car in Pro-Am is in 7th place overall. It's the number 2 Mercedes, now in the hands of Marcus Pavarud. Second car in class is de Moustier in the number 35 car. The Red Relay competition Alpine he shares with Alain Ferte. Third in the Pro-Am class, Kai van Berlo, looking for a good result on home ground. He's right under the tail of de Moustier's Alpine. Leading car in the AM class, Bob Herper. So we've got a Dutch candidate for victory in the AM class, as well as a Dutch candidate, Simon Knapp, who's looking for outright victory. His car is now in the hands of Ali Cudel. It's the 25 BMW. It is being pushed really, really hard by the Ecris Motorsport M4. And I think the driver who could profit is the driver at the wheel of the car in third place, the Benjamin Lessen. Because as it's getting very, very busy in front of him, the McLaren driver is sitting there or thereabouts. We heard from Dan Mackay that they're fairly confident they've got their tyre degradation under control and the latter stages of the race. We still have 20 minutes remaining in this race. That could prove very useful indeed. But there's traffic up ahead of the lead trio, and all along, Max Coburn, championship leader, is hunting them down in 4th place. It's closing up 3 seconds from 1st through to 4th. That's tight, that's competitive. Indeed, that's what we expect for the GT4 Euro Series. 1st, 2nd and 3rd, short gap back to 4th. In fact, maybe not such a good lap for Max Coburn. There is traffic ahead though down to Tarzan. They go 3 cars, 3 drivers, or the drivers 3 cars being warned for not respecting track limits out at turn 11. It's the corner where they're watched the most. It's the number 8 car. Good grief, that's the car in second place. It's Ricardo van der Ende. Well, there we go. It's the number 25 car, Alec Udell, leading the race. And it's 68. It's the Camaro in the hands of Finley Hutchison. I don't know if the penalty was with Finley at the wheel, but he's the driver doing the second stint. Car number 7 being warned for not respecting track limits at that corner as well. That's the car that's being pinged for lots of penalties. Julian Darras at the wheel. And suddenly the second of the MDM Motorsport BMWs into pit lane. Kim Bergert's at the wheel. That's down in 15th place. Don't forget that was running 7th or 8th before the pit stops. Clearly this isn't planned in the pits for a problem. Didn't see what it was, just came past my window. But I need to look at the screen because the battle at the lead of the race. Alec Udell leading in the black BMW ahead of the white and grey one from Chris Motorsport. There's a Aston Martin tail ender up ahead of them. That's one that's been in and out of the pits, the number 17 car. I think it had a puncture and that's why it's been delayed so much. But first, second and third, they really are first, second and third, nose to tail now. Less than a second covered them at the start of the lap. You can see the McLaren, number 14, Benjamin Lecen at the wheel, getting closer and closer. The number 14 car getting whatever tow he possibly can around the infield straight down to the tight right at Hans Ernst Bock. They still haven't caught that number 17 Aston Martin. Clement Seiler driving it very well, but he will need to keep out of the way once those blue flags are waved at him. They may not even catch him by Tarzan. They want to catch him before Tarzan because then through Gerlach Bocht and into the Kugenholz Bocht it gets tighter and tighter and is very, very tricky indeed to get past. Drive-through penalty still needs to be served by the number 7 car that's out there picking up problems. Oh well, so this is the BMW I saw coming in and clearly concerned. I presume it's a wheel they've already changed, but or maybe it just doesn't feel quite right. That's not a team that looks like it's working super fast or on a very, very quick wheel change. So maybe it was more than a puncture. Top 6 cars covered by just over 5.5 seconds. The car in 6th, and it must be cursing, is the number 16 car. Patrick Niederhauser stalled it, lost about 2 or 3 seconds before he could get back into the race. And that is why he's behind Nikolai Moller-Madsen. He'll be just out of the back of the shot. Yeah, just coming to shot. The red, Moller-Madsen, Phoenix Racing Audi, still just in front of KTM. Patrick Niederhauser pushing. He just set the fastest first sector of anybody last time around. They're lapping at the pace of the race leaders, so it's not changing much now. Just remember, 5.6 seconds, that's nothing from first down to 6th. We've still got plenty of time, more than a quarter hour towards the end of this race. Latest driver to be pinged for possibly exceeding track limits or not respecting them is the driver in 3rd place. But let's go down because Dakota is down in the pit lane. Let's find out who she's going to talk to.
What a well-run race this has been. You're doing great so far. Do you think you can hold the pressure?
Yeah, I think so. My first stint was okay. The battle with the other cars was very well. I hope a good result today.
Now, I just spoke to Daniel Mackay, and he said that his car is really fast. Do you think your car's good today?
I hope so. It's all the guys are very fast. I hope a good result today on the home track here.
Yeah, and what would it mean to you to win on your home track?
Yeah, that's fine.
Just fine. Yeah, you're speechless, aren't you?
Yeah, it's great. Okay.
Good luck for the rest of the race. Let's see how you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Dakota. Down there with the driver who's got out of the race-leading car, Simon Knapp. You can tell he's nervous. He actually just wants to be looking at screens. But thank you very much for coming to talk to us. So, confidence from some of the teams. But I must say, right now, it's going the way of that number 25 MDM Motorsport car because you can see the car in 2nd place is falling back very slightly, Ricardo van der Ende. But all of these drivers have been warned in the last couple of laps for exceeding track limits. We could yet have penalties that will shape the outcome of this race. The drivers have to be fully aware of that, but they're giving their all at the moment. They're nose to tail. First to second, but covered by 3/4 of a second. That's what it was on the start-finish line. And the gap back to Patrick Niederhauser, last time I looked a lap ago, it was 5.6, 5.7 seconds. It's below 5, so it's coming down. But look, the clock at the top of the screen is as well. Just over a quarter of an hour to go in this 1 hour race. Which so is set fair to be dry all the way to the end of the race. That, at least, is a good thing. Oh, and Ricardo van der Ende, as soon as I write him off saying he's not right on the tail of the race leader anymore, he catches up with the American. So Alec Udell has got to focus all over again. There's another car just up, still in front of them, lapping at the same pace. It's very impressive pace by Clement Seiler, been having a setback in the number 17 Street Art Racing Aston Martin. Was in and out of the pits, had an extra call. In fact, it's had, let's see, it's had three calls, so 2 extra stops. That's why it's at least 2 laps in arrears, but lapping at the same pace. That could be very tricky indeed. But right now, Alec Udell is just simply concentrating on the charge from behind. And the person who is on the charge is Max Cobbold. 4th place and lap times. Yep, he gained a third of a second on those ahead of them. The trio ahead of them, 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. In 4th place still, but catching, I would suggest also catching all of those in front. The Phoenix Racing Audi in 5th place overall, yesterday's race-winning car, and then Reinhard Koffler handed to Patrick Niederhauser, and Patrick stalled once, if not twice, trying to leave his pit stop, lost him 2 or 3 seconds. If it wasn't for that, he would be on the tail of the McLaren, I would reckon. As it is, he's in 6th place, pushing for 5th, pushing very, very hard indeed, and now first through, a 1/10 of a second gain last time around, so it's 4.8 seconds from 1st through to 6th place. Patrick Niederhauser, Marcus Paverud just out of the background of their shot, yellow Mercedes going through the second part of Tarzan. He is leading the Pro-Am class in 7th overall. Car number 1 now being observed. Literally every single car, bar Max Cobbold, I would say, out of the top half dozen have been warned for exceeding track limits at turn number 11. Car number 1 is the car in 5th place overall, Nikolai Müller-Madsen. The stewards are watching. No change, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. A second between them on the start finish line. Looks like a better middle part of the lap there for race leader Alec Udell. 5th and 6th, the Audi from Phoenix Racing and the True Racing KTM. The KTM is very nimble through this little part of the circuit. This is the point where it's already sprung a surprise. Earlier points in the race, but right now he's being resisted by Müller-Madsen, who's holding on to that 5th place for Audi. Yet another car being observed for exceeding track limits. It's car number 13 again at turn number 11. That's Mark Basseng in one of the 2 Schweder Motorsport Mercedes. Of course, the sister car was taken out in the first start of the race. Jan Reinig's car clattered into the barriers, into the pit wall. One of 6 cars that didn't get to take the restart. Where are the moves coming from? They're trading 1/10 of a second here and there. Must say, Alec Udell has just got those couple of car lengths that are so vital for his retention of the lead. Another little battle behind Marcus Paverud being pushed by Finlay Hutchinson. The Scots making the moves in that blue Camaro. Won't be happening this time, but he's grabbed bunches of time off him last time around. In fact, Finlay's just set the fastest car for the Camaro. No wonder he's closed in. He gained 6/10 of a second. Marcus Paverud has to realise, though, that he is leading the Pro-Am class, and that is the most important thing. The difference between 8th and 7th overall is less important. The difference between winning the Pro-Am class and not. Leading the chase, about 4 seconds back, is Kai van Berlo, 9th overall in the number 30 Seleslau Racing Team Mercedes. This is the sister car. That is leading the Am class. That's Bob Herber at the wheel. He's in 14th overall. So Seleslau having a good run. 2nd in Pro-Am, 1st in Am. And the car giving chase is Julian Darras in the much delayed number 7 Aston Martin that, don't forget, in the hands of Jamie van den Balk, was running at the very sharp end of the field in the first part of the race. And, well, the number 17 car has decided to do the right thing, pulled out of the way, let the lead, when I say the lead trio, I mean the lead first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars go past. So well done by Clement Schuyler. 2 laps down. He's not going to be scoring lots of points, but he's having good racing and showed he could match the pace of those at the front end, which I guess gives personal satisfaction. 10 and a bit minutes remaining in this race. It's been a busy, busy place, and certainly yesterday we had a winning margin of 6 seconds. The first 6 seconds covers the first 6 cars with a second or so to spare. It's 4.8 seconds to Patrick Niederhauser now, so it is all gradually concertinaing, but I can't see any changes coming at the front. Another message on the screen. Car number 68, that's Finlay Hutchinson's car, under investigation, along with car number 2 for contact at turn number 8, and they're fighting together on the circus. Marcus Paverud ahead of Finlay Hutchinson. There is Finlay diving up the inside, so their order has been reversed. The Camaro was coming, the Camaro was catching, but for driver of number 2, Marcus Paverud, the Norwegian, again, just want to reiterate, his main aim is to take victory in Pro-Am class. He is doing just that at the moment. 4 and a bit seconds further down the track is the Kai van Berlo driven number 30 Seleslau Racing car that's 2nd in Pro-Am. And Gabriel Ipiana, I said look for the progress from the 111 BMW, back from 28th on the grid up to 10th overall, 3rd in the Pro-Am class. So he's did well to avoid that start line collision, and he's picked his way forward ever since, as you'd expect a driver of the Italian's caliber to do. Bob Herber's margin in the 31 Mercedes leading the Pro-Am classes down to just 2.2 seconds over the charging CMR Alpine of David Loja. That still has time to change. As does this battle for 5th position, because certainly Patrick Niederhauser is getting a bit fed up at looking at the red Audi, wants to be in front of it. So the KTM driver pushing as hard as he can. Again, half a second taken off the race leader last time around, but the race leader is still Alec Udell, is still Ricardo van der Ende in 2nd place, and Benjamin Sen in 3rd. The only driver enjoying a quiet run is Max Cobolt. Can't quite catch them. He's a second back from that lead trio. Safe in 4th as Moller Madsen, and behind him, Patrick Niederhauser. Fight and fight and fight. Sweeping onto the start for the straight. Moller Madsen looking like a tough nut to crack. And likewise, Alec Udell in the lead of the race. He's resisting a heck of a storm. Ricardo van der Ende, who knows all the tricks to try at all of the corners around his home circuit, has not found a chink in the armour. Now, was there someone just up ahead? It seemed like a slightly smoky image there. Someone made a mistake just up ahead of lead 3. Can't see. No time to wait, no time to watch. Ricardo van der Ende holds down that 2nd place, pushed as always by Benjamin Lessen, but the Belgian not finding the gap. And Lessen's teammate Daniel Mackay looking on, wanted victory, might have to make do with 3rd place here, but it's not over yet. Ricardo van der Ende going past the point. He got 3.5 tyres off the surface by bashing the inside on the exit of the Rob Slottermacher box, hit the curb, lost a bit of momentum, let the McLaren get on his tail, and importantly let Alec Udell find that very, very minor advantage at the front of the field. Not so long ago we had a message on the screen, incident involving a collision with a Camaro at turn 8. Now it's the sister car, number 69, in the hands of Duncan Houseman, who's had possible contact with 35, which is the Alpine of Demoustier. That's running at the back of the Pro-Am pack, but certainly Duncan Houseman has gone past, looking to continue to make progress, and it seems as though he should be able to pick. He's right on the tail of Gabriele Piana now. 5th place, though, continues to be fought really, really hard. Tooth and nail. Yesterday's race-winning Phoenix Racing Audi still running wide, but still holding off the KTM. Lights are flashing from Patrick Niederhauser. Cannot find a way by, but all along this pair are getting closer and closer to the lead group. Now 1st to 6th, it's down to 3.8 seconds. Not so long ago it was 5.8 seconds, so down it comes, but the clock is coming down too. 7 minutes left in this 1-hour race. No further action, contact between Marcus Paverud and Finley Hutchinson. The Scot went ahead, now up into 7th place, but Marcus Paverud continues. No danger of penalty for him. No danger of a place change just for now. For 5th, still Nikolai Moller-Madsen hangs on to that position. And still, Alec Udell, it looks as though the pressure was getting more and more, but the last few laps have been good for him. He's nearly 8/10 of a second clear in the lead of the race. Are there any more questions that can be asked by Ricardo van der Ende, or is he being restricted by the charging McLaren behind him? Benjamin Lessen is his shadow. Up over the rise, out of the Slottermacher box into Chevlac. Looks very comfortable in the lead of the race for Alec Udell. I mean, they're running at cracking pace, but he's just got enough of an advantage that Ricardo van der Ende cannot jump him into a corner. He's those 3 or 4 car lengths back, and that's just a comfortable space, particularly in a race as close as this. And all along, Max Cobolt is closing in. 4th place is getting closer to 3rd. Almost as one. 5th and 6th still really tight together. Looking for the moves. Are there going to be any moves coming? Whose tyres have stayed sweetest this deep into the race? Whenever you get to tight, twisty bits, you expect the KTM to make a move, but Moller Madsen's been very, very wise with that Audi. Just puts it where it needs to be. And Patrick Niederhauser, particularly at tight parts of the second circuit like this, if there's a bit more width on the road, I reckon he'd make a run around the outside, but suddenly a problem. Niederhauser is slowing in the background of the shot. The KTM, has he picked up a puncture? Has he run wide? Did he miss a gear? But he went right off the tail of Nikolai Moller Madsen. And he may have just shed 6th place. Car doesn't appear to want to turn very well. So that final corner, I fear a puncture could be the problem. Is he going to come into the pit lane? Well, can't tell you. Something suddenly happened on the second part of the Hansard spot, but that's brought an advantage for Nikolai Moller Madsen. He's able to pull clear, and suddenly Patrick Niederhauser. He shed about a second and a bit. Now, here's the challenge for 2nd place. Can Ricardo van der Ende hang on? Very, very close, just a quarter of a second down. But where are the gaps? There haven't been any gaps as yet. Pushing hard down into the Hugenholzbach goes Benjamin Lecen. There is no space being offered, and no space being taken at the moment. So all along, this is very good news to the race leader, Alec Udell. 2 wins with his teammate Simon Knapp when they went racing for MDM Motorsport at Paul Ricard at the start of June. Now it's July, feels more like May, not that warm, and maybe that suited the cars at the very front of the field, because the BMWs really looked as though they got right on top of their handling. Tyre degradation not seemingly to be too much of a problem for them. Clousing the curves on the inside, it gets closer and closer, this battle for second place. Great scrap, and the Mercedes in 4th place. Max Cobalt is taking advantage of this and closing in 4th place, but look, 4 minutes left. Another incident under investigation. Again, it's car number 69, and that's Duncan Houseman, under investigation for an incident with 35 de Moustier, now for incident with number 111, Gabriele Piano's BMW, the car that came up to the very tail of the field. And suddenly, released from the pressure of being harried by the KTM, Nikolai Moller-Madsen, the Phoenix Racing Audi, just at the point on the circuit where the KTM dropped back, he has now pulled almost onto the tail of Jan Kisiel. And from attacker to defender, second place, Ricardo van der Ende doing everything he can to keep Benjamin Lecen's McLaren behind him. Lecen's had a very good run onto the start, finish straight. Likewise, the Phoenix Racing Audi. Is it going to be a change down? You can't almost see the McLaren, it's so tight in behind that BMW, but for Alec Udell, down one more time into the lead of the race. 29 laps completed, this is 30th. Trying different lines around the outside and then looking to the inside at Tarzan, but there is no gap for Benjamin Lecen. He must be heartily fed up. He's now trying to take the wider line to get a faster exit out of Hugenholzbach, but watch out, you've suddenly got the yellow Lippert Mercedes onto your tail, and in fact that was a better exit from Hugenholzbach for the driver in second place. This is the biggest gap Ricardo van der Ende has had from the McLaren, so maybe the McLaren's tyres, by experimenting with that different line, just didn't find the grip that was expected by the Belgian. He's falling back, so suddenly first, then second, then third, fourth, fifth. Very, very close indeed. So the challenge, is it shot, or can the McLaren get back onto the tail of that second place Ecris Motorsport BMW? And suddenly, Nikolai Moller-Madsen decided, no, I'm close enough to make a challenge. I'm going to try and dive past Jan Kisiel. Wasn't quite on. And suddenly the KTM is back on his tail. His nightmare has returned. Patrick Niederhauser has fought back after whatever that problem was that dropped him off by a second or so a couple of laps ago. He's now right on the tail of the Audi all over again. Still in 6th place. The Audi still 5th. Max Cobalt still 4th. And the top 3, as they have been literally since the pit stops. Alec Udell ahead of Ricardo van der Ende. The McLaren in 3rd place. Nose to tail racing. Biggest advantage of all in the top 6 cars is actually now the gap between 1st and 2nd. It was 1.2 seconds last time around. We've got time to complete this lap and do one further lap. The next lap will be the final lap of the race. Onto the start-finish straight. It's remained dry. They go past the scene of the start line incident. You can still see the markings on the track. Here is the AM battle, because suddenly it's had a change. We've had leading the class for an age, Bob Herber, but the Dutchman has been hunted down by the Alpine, and David Logier has moved ahead. So I saw he was getting closer, but the last couple of laps have been very good for Logier, and the French racer has gone in front. Is there going to be a change in that position again before the end of the race for Dutchman Herber? That would be hugely disappointing, but he's still got half a lap to go. Just over half a lap to go for first, second, third, fourth. The top 6 covered by 3.7 seconds between them. But the most important gap is first to second. It's out to 1.4 seconds. So it looks as though Alec Udell will put a big smile on his teammate Simon Knapp's face. Simon there looking at the screens through the side of the pit awning, counting it down. And he has to be confident, because when Ricardo van der Ende spent half a dozen laps right on the tail of the MDM number 25 BMW, he couldn't find a gap, and then suddenly the gap went out, and he's not going to find it now, barring a sudden puncture. Race leader surely has got this one in the bag. They're almost nose to tail behind. The KTM still diving one way, harrying Nikolai Moller-Madsen all the time, but Patrick Niederhauser is running out of ideas. They're close, going on the infield straight. The next corner is the Hans Ernst Bock, but already Alec Udell is through the first part of that with no challenge. Likewise, all those behind not quite close enough to make a manoeuvre. If any move's going to come, the most likely place is the penultimate corner. Approaching that now, race leader Alec Udell. Ricardo van der Ende has held on to second place. Benjamin Lecen third behind the 2 BMWs in his McLaren. Then Max Cobalt, championship leader. 4th place would be good. He'd like to be higher, but it's all about gathering points consistently. Yesterday's winner, Nikolai Moller-Madsen, coming around in 5th, and the KTM in 6th in Patrick Niederhauser's hands. But the victor today, Alec Udell, will put that big smile on Simon Natt's face. There is Simon up on the pit wall, delighted with that. Margin of victory, it doesn't matter. It's victory. 1.2 seconds as the flag fell. So really good run. That car came up from 4th on the grid and did a fantastic job under huge pressure. And likewise, from 6th on the grid, 2nd is a very good result for Equus Motorsport. But Simon Natt, yeah, taking the applause, the smooching down in the pit lane. So plenty of action. It seems a very long time ago that we had the race stopped almost before it started with that start line incident. But there it was at the end. Pro-Am victory went to Marcus Paverud in the number 2 Mercedes, with Kai van Berlo just 1.5 seconds behind, and 3rd in class Duncan Houseman in the 69 Camaro. The AM class did go to David Logier, got through right at the end of the race in the little CMR Alpine. There it is crossing the line, and the yellow nose of the Mercedes that crossed behind is that of David Logier's car, Bob Herbert's car, of course. And Gabi Ulyi, sharing with Lisette Brahms, takes 3rd in the AM class. So action aplenty, some really, really close racing. And again, Zandvoort showing it doesn't offer overtaking opportunities with any generosity whatsoever, but some fabulous scrapping, some great moves, and a lot of moves that were very, very nearly good moves. And so we get to the end of 1 hour of racing. It took 2 attempts to go from start to finish. And there is the finishing order. 1.2 seconds, the gap between the driver who took the finish line, Alec Udell, and Ricardo van der Ende, who led the chase. Benjamin Lassen had no answers in the McLaren, but was right on the tails. And Jan Kisiel and Max Cobalt started the race as championship leaders. Another very useful helping of points for them. Nikolai Moller-Madsen brought the Audi, yesterday's race-winning car, up into 5th overall. But you can see the top 6 covered by 3.6 seconds. And a fabulous spread of cars. The winner car in Pro-Am, Marcus Paverud bringing it home. Lucy Treff did the first part of the race. Down in 8th place overall. The top AM car right at the end, 15th place overall. Eric Mouget and David Logier in their little CMR Alpine. So plenty of manufacturer variety, plenty of stories to be told. But I guess the biggest story of the race for a lot of the drivers was the fact that 6 cars tripped themselves up, or one tripped up the others on the start-finish line. Glad no injury to the drivers, but certainly it was a little over-spectacular. But for those at the front, there was some classic scrapping. And I think there'll be a lot of rather big smiles when the cars pull in beneath the podium. So that's the end of the second of the 2 GT4 European races here at Zandvoort. It's been great fun, and they are all shaping up for the final round later this year. So just waiting as Alec Udell trickles back. It's always when you win, you just like to savour the moment, come back round. But the winner of the second race, that's their 3rd win here. Oh, not here, 3rd win in the championship. Took a brace of wins at Paul Ricard. Since then, a 3rd, a 5th, a 6th, and now a further win. And that really does put them in very good stead for the championship. There are the championship points, and Kisiel and Cobalt hang on, but lead has come down as Napp and Udell with that victory close within 6 points. Benjamin Lassen and Daniel Mackay in 3rd place. 3rd place on the track today, 3rd place on the championship points. So the winning car makes it back to the pit lane. The sister car, number 26, dropped out. See what the problem was, dropped towards the tail of the field. We saw them investigating the left rear wheel on that. But here's the car that finished 3rd. Another useful scoop of points. Daniel Mackay going out to pat on the roof, open the angled door, which obviously doesn't take up much space in Parc Fermé, but already MDM Motorsport starting to cheer. Simon Napp needs to put Ricardo van der Ende, always a joker, pulls up just so the race winner can't get out, so Alec Udell is trapped. Yeah, Ricardo doesn't seem about it. He just likes to laugh at all opportunities, but very, very quick. But today, not quite quick enough. Couldn't find a way past. And the American ace, I think we can call him that, 3 wins on his debut season in Europe. Alec Udell with Simon Napp, a huge amount of satisfaction for the MDM Motorsport BMW racers down there. Victory today in the second of the 2 GT4 Euro Series races, and plenty of pride on display.
Oh, you make me so happy. Nice job. Good job. Good drive. Yeah.
So lots of back slapping, and I think a huge amount of satisfaction for Simon Napp, who enjoyed the second half of the race. Nervous for a while, but the last 5 or 6 laps he saw that Alec Udell, his teammate, had things under control. Ricardo van der Ende, his attack had been blunted, and it certainly was helped by the McLaren being right on the tail of the Equus Motorsport M4, stopping it making any further progress. So for MDM Motorsport, happiness and a little bit of sadness. There's Mark van der Aar, who had to park the second car, the sister car, with a wheel problem. But maximum points, closing up the championship table at the top. Simon Knapp, winner today, as he was at Paul Ricard and the American Alec Udell. I think we'll get a smile. Let's join them because Dakota's come and joined them down below Parc Fermé. So Simon Knapp, joined by his winner today, Alec Udell, with Dakota.
Nice drive.
Congratulations, guys. What a race that was, for ups and downs all throughout the race. I bet you're so happy to be standing here, Simon.
Yes, so happy. It was a great race from begin to the end. Alec did a fantastic job. Great. Good day.
You hear that, Alec? Fantastic job.
Yes, thank you. Simon did a lot of hard work. I was able to just run a steady pace to the end, and we kept it up front. So very happy for MDM at our home race, and all the people we have out here supporting us this weekend. It's awesome. So it feels good.
Good to see. Good. Thank you, guys.
So well done to the winning crew. It was tough, it was tight, and they prevailed. Certainly that will give them an awful lot of pressure. Winning is one thing, but if you could do so under pressure from your very closest championship rivals, not crack, but more to the point, also make moves, passing manoeuvres, it will weigh heavy on their minds of the rivals for future races. Certainly Simon Knapp and Alec Udell on fantastic form here in the second race at Zandvoort. And busy, busy days, just waiting for the drivers to go up to the podium. But just to reiterate, let's take a look at the highlight. It was fast, it was furious, and maybe there was a little bit too much action from the very outset. Here is the start of the race, and unfortunately what happened around the middle order, the 66 Bullet Racing McLaren coming across like a bullet, and the chain reaction behind. Some drivers guessed correctly, quite a few cars caught out, half a dozen cars removed from the race. So we had the race, the track cleared up and the race restarted behind the safety car, and that gave the advantage to pole starter Daniel Mackay. But eventually he was hunted down and passed in a really bold manoeuvre from Simon Knapp in that 25 MDM Motorsport BMW. They came in at different times, and who was going to read the situation best? Dan Mackay coming over to hand over to Benjamin Lassen, and the only one of the top 6 runners that really suffered was this one. Number 16 KTM could not get going at the second or possibly third time of asking. Patrick Niederhauser came out, but the front grouping had already gone through. It was Alec Udell leading from Ricardo van der Ende, and chased by the McLaren in the background, but 6 cars covered by next to no time. But it was the 25 BMW taking victory today here at Zandvoort. No wonder they were so delighted, and the happiest man of all, I would suggest, is Simon Knapp, who had to watch the second half of the race unfold. Unfair tactics there from Ricardo van der Ende, trapping the race winner in his car. We've seen it before, but it makes me smile every single time. And eventually Alec Udell released to greet his teammate who cheered him home. Simon Knapp, Alec Udell, today's winners here at Zandvoort. So blue sky in the distance, the podium ceremony is ahead of us, waiting for a packed afternoon racing at Zandvoort. Don't forget, this is a circuit that will have a Formula 1 Grand Prix next year for the first time since 1985. So to say there is enthusiasm bubbling to the surface is a massive, massive understatement. But yet again, it proved it's a great track to race on. Let's look at the championship points. 4th place for Jan Kisiel and Max Cobalt, still enough to keep them in the lead of the championship, but Simon Knapp and Alec Udell closing right in, just 6 points behind. 3rd place today, Daniel Mackay and Benjamin Lassen. 3rd place overall, Ewan Mackay, Ricardo van der Ende. 2nd place wasn't enough, they wanted the maximum points. They're sort of the outside bet in the championship in 4th overall. Really, it's between those top 3 crews as we advance through the season. So, having seen those points for the leading runners, let's go up onto the podium. Ecris Motorsport crew coming out. These are the team chiefs coming out. The drivers will follow. First presentation to the team crews. Checks, everybody likes to check. And so pit stop challenge time. And to the winners, the spoils up on the top step of the podium. Nice little touch for the crews here at Zandvoort. Smile at the cameras, and then it'll be time for the overall podium. And I think we'll see a sort of an array of expressions from full happiness to slight frustrated notions for those behind. But there we have it, all getting ready. But it stayed dry, packed with action from start through to finish. And of course it took a second start after that start line accident. But the cars were battered, but the drivers shaken perhaps, but all were okay, which is very good news indeed. So waiting for the top 3 crews to come out. And the first one we should see would be the Equipe Bashore McLaren crew of Daniel Mackay, who started on pole position, and Benjamin Nassen, just waiting for the signal for them to come out. The trophies or bottles of champagne getting readied up on the podium. But we got away without any rain in the race. The track didn't prove too tricky, but the start was what tripped a few of them up. So here come the Equipe Bashore McLaren drivers being called out to the podium. Daniel Mackay, who started from pole, and the driver who brought it through to the finish, which of course is his teammate Benjamin Nassen, the Belgian. Second place, Ecris Motorsport crew. There's another Mackay, it's Ewan and Ricardo van der Ende, so the 2 Mackay brothers up on the podium. But the top step will go to the number. Here's the crew that took it home, the 25 MDM Motorsport BMW crew, led out by Simon Knapp, as he did in the race. He worked his way to the front, and then Alec Udell protected that lead all the way to the finish. Now the national anthem. So as the strains of the Dutch national anthem fade away, the Dutch winner on the top step, Simon Knapp, and his American teammate Alec Udell taking the applause, and plenty of applause and cheering bringing up from beneath them on the pit lane. Out come the trophies. Job very well done. That was hard work for everybody involved, and some fantastic nose-to-tail racing. Third place, the Equipe Bashore McLaren crew. Dan Mackay and Benjamin Nassen, the slightly larger trophies, to second place for the Ecris Motorsport M4 crew of Ewan Mackay and Ricardo van der Ende. And up on the top step, waiting for the biggest trophies of all, the winners' trophies. On left of shot, Simon Knapp with the dark curly hair and the lighter hair, and the shorter figure, the American racer Alec Udell. They take the trophies. They work very, very hard for that indeed at Zandvoort. And there they are for the official picture. 2 great races here at Zandvoort, a circuit that really makes them work very hard indeed, and some fabulous shots of these cars around a circuit with proper gradient change, which always makes for some fabulous racing. There, finally, the champagne. They can unleash those emotions as well. They worked hard, but that fabulous win today has been a real boost to Simon Knapp and Alec Udell as they mount their championship challenge. More podium ceremonies to follow. We have the Pro-Am podium as well, and then the Am podium. They all have to be served, so we have plenty more drivers going to have their turn in the sunshine, and it is trying to be sunny here at Zandvoort. It's been a great weekend of racing. Still plenty more on a packed agenda here on race Sunday. So as the front runners go off the podium, already cars forming up. I said it's a busy day, cars doing supercar laps around the circuit, but we're waiting for the Pro-Am podium. And we know the winner in that class, Lucy Treffs and Marcus Paverud for Lippert Motorsport. So along with their teammates who are running in the Pro class, they've both had very, very strong races in the yellow Mercedes. Third in class, car number 69, Luke Brahms, Duncan Hausman, V8 Racing Camaro. They take the third place spot. Celestar Racing Team, Kai van Berlo and Angelique de Tavernier. And the top step will go to the number 2 crew, Lippert Motorsport Mercedes racer, Lucy Treffs and Marcus Paverud. So this is the Pro-Am class. They rounded out the top 10. They came home in 8th, 9th and 10th position. And don't forget, number 2 crew decided to get out of the way of the 68 Camaros that came through. That was in Pro, there and out. So the German national anthem for Leipzig Motorsport, the entrant of the winning team in the Pro-Am class. Lucy Treffs and Marcus Paverud up on the top step of the podium. 8th place overall. And on the left of the screen, Angelique de Tavernier and young Dutch ace Kai van Berlo. They took 2nd place in the class, not so far behind. 3rd place, Duncan Hausman and Luke Brahms in the 2nd of those 2 V8 Racing Camaros. Again, the largest trophies to the winners presented by Pirelli. Pirelli wins caps for all of the drivers up there. Official photo, and they will make way for the 3rd and final podium for the AM class of the GT4 European Series. You always fancy Duncan Heisman to be quite quick on the spraying. 3rd in the race today along with Luke Brahms, but quickest on the champagne. Smiles all round up on the podium. So that's the Pro-Am podium. We've had the overall podium. That leaves us the AM podium to complete the ceremonies for the GT4 European Series. So change of personnel up top. A busy, busy day here at the Zandvoort circuit. Lots of fans in the grandstands, on the sand dunes, on top of the pit building, looking down, soaking up the racing action and the atmosphere as well. Plenty of atmosphere here at Zandvoort, as there always is. I must say, through the day, just looking at the flag. Well, let's take a look at the Pro-Am Cup. Marcus Paverud and Lucy Treffs, fastest today, top winners in the class, and stretch their points advantage. Marius Zug and Gabriele Piana set back by having to start 28th and last on the grid. And really, it was a case of none of the chasers scoring a big helping of points. So that has been very much in the favour of Marcus Paverud and Lucy Treffs, the winners. So now it's the turn of the AM podium. And Lisette Brahms, ever the showgirl, comes out. Gabby Ulyi, they have the Las Maras by Equipe Vachon McLaren, 3rd in class. Just bring the requisite number of children out onto the podium. 2nd place in cars. It led until right before the end of the race. Alessandro Giovanelli and Bob Herber racing for the Salazar Racing team, but the crew that know each other very well, David Loger, Eric Mouet, took victory right at the end in their CMR Alpine. They take the top step. So the rousing Marseillaise to the French drivers for the French team in the French car. CMR Alpine's David Loger and Eric Mouet worked hard, and right at the end they got their rewards. And so they will take the winners' trophies in the AM class of the GT4 European Series. I must say it's a nice touch, I think, when people can bring smaller family members up to celebrate with them, because we all understand going racing is a family affair. It needs to be. So, but the winners' trophies, David Loger and Eric Mouet up on the top step. That's been a really, really good run for them today, and all the more exciting because they hunted down the Mercedes ahead of them. So close to Salazar Racing team, but it was the CMR Alpine crew that came through 3rd place and 1st with the champagne, as you would suggest, as you would guess. Always having fun. Lisette Brahms, she lets rip to start with. Great celebrations up there. That's the 3rd and last of the champagne. So that's it from now from the GT4 European Series. Make sure you join us next time. The racing is always fantastic. That's goodbye from me, Bruce Jones.